Hello everyone, welcome to today's MarketingBitz webinar. Today's webinar is titled Driving Real Business Results from Social Marketing, and we're brought to you by our guest presenter Nick Hopkins from Haibu and our own Greg Sterling from the LSA. So I just have a few quick announcements before we get started, so next slide please. First of all, the webinar will be archived on our website, MarketingBitz.com. You can access it by clicking on the Webinars tab at the top, and then you'll see the webinar posted at the top of the page as seen in the screenshot here. Our site also features a variety of resources for you to learn the basics of digital marketing, so feel free to look around. And also don't forget to join in on the conversation today using the Twitter hashtag BitzWebinar, or you can tweet at us at MarketingBitz. Next slide, please. So in other news, our 2017 MarketingBitz Bootcamp series is underway. For those of you who are unfamiliar, our MarketingBitz Bootcamps are one-day digital marketing intensives that we host across the country where small businesses can learn the fundamentals of digital marketing from the experts at companies like Google, YP, Yelp, etc. So our upcoming boot camps will be in Nashville on May 17th and New York City on June 27th. And if you want to get a 50% discount on registration, just enter the code HIBUWEB, which you can see on the screen here when you're registering. To register, please go to www.bitzbootcamp.com and click on the name of the show you want to register for. And don't forget to enter the promo code, like I said. So next slide, please. Last thing I wanted to bring up is that everything that we're going to be discussing today, or mostly everything, will be covered in our small business report titled Small Business Guide to Facebook Marketing. You can find this report at the link here, www.marketingbitz.com/reports-haibu. So like I said, everything we're covering today will be included in the report, so feel free to download that for free for more details. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Greg to start off today's webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you, Becky, and I'm glad to be here with Nick talking about social media marketing. And my role today is really just to set up Nick's discussion of tactics, which is an excellent discussion. It goes into a lot of depth, and I'm going to give you some context. So all of you know basically that social media is a big deal. You're probably all already on social media either in a consumer capacity or you have a business page on Facebook or other properties. What we see here in this slide is based on LSA research regarding Facebook adoption by local businesses. And we see that about 80% are using Facebook or other social media, this is not entirely Facebook, for some sort of marketing purpose. Only a small minority are not using social media in one form or another, and this includes both paid and free presence, Facebook presence, or other kind of social media presence. So next slide. In a different survey, we asked local business owners what were the most essential marketing methods according to them, what they thought were the critical things that they needed to be doing to reach their customers. And this is a little bit dense, but what you can see, the chart, the bar graph on the left and then the list on the right are basically a mirror of one another. Website was the main way that people saw themselves marketing themselves online. This was the principal and most critical piece of a digital marketing strategy, and that was followed by social media and search engine optimization, which tied for second. But social media consistently ranks in the top three when you ask this type of question to business owners. Next slide, please. A different organization, Burrell Associates, conducted a survey, a pretty broad survey of businesses, both small independent businesses and much larger but still technically small businesses, and asked what sources of what media, what channels were driving the best new leads or the most leads. And social media ranked as the number 3 source just after the website, which is an interesting parallel with the slide we just saw about essential marketing methods. So word-of-mouth referrals was number 1, website was number 2, social media was number 3. And I have to say, just as a caveat, that people don't always know exactly where their leads are coming from, but at a minimum, this reflects the perception that social media is driving a lot of leads. Next slide, please. So to the other question about who's advertising versus who has a presence on Facebook, this is one of the LSA surveys that I referenced earlier. How many people are buying Facebook ads among those on Facebook? And it's a fairly small percentage. There are other sources that have found higher numbers, but what we see is still a pretty big imbalance between the number of businesses on Facebook doing some kind of quote-unquote organic or free marketing, and then those that have moved into an advertising mode, and there are different kinds of ad units, boosting posts and other kinds of ads, but it's still a minority use case. Now, obviously, Facebook would like that to be higher, and they're doing things to try and encourage people to advertise. Next slide. So in the event that it isn't obvious or self-evident, why is social media marketing important today? And one thing that you might have inferred or intuited is that it's going to have an impact on how consumers find your business and the ways in which they engage with your business. So next slide. This reflects the many different tools and resources that consumers are using, people are using to find local business information, and there's just a wide variety of things. One of the features of the market now is that people are just all over the place using multiple information sources, search engines, directory sites, review sites, topic-specific sites, coupons, traditional media, print media. So there's just lots of places that people go, and they will go to many different sources in the course of trying to make a particular buying decision. But what you see here called out are friends and family and social network. So friends and family could be an experience that manifests or shows up on a social network. So people asking for referrals or asking for information or insight, that can happen on a place like Facebook. And then explicitly, social networks are a place where people will do that kind of investigation, looking at reviews, trying to engage with businesses. So these are critical pieces of the buying journey, and this is why social media now has to be addressed, because people are all over social media asking questions, looking for information. So next slide. The issue of trust is one that's very interesting. So Nielsen, the company that most people know in connection with TV ratings, but they do a lot more than that, conducts a roughly annual global trust and advertising study in which they ask people, which kinds of media do you trust? What, traditional media, digital media, and then within those categories, lots of very specific questions. And without getting into it too much, at the highest level, the top three trusted sources are word of mouth or recommendations from people that they know, and this is consistent with the slide we just saw. Consumer opinions online, so these are like ratings and reviews, which exist on review sites and different places, and certainly in social media. And then editorial content, such as you would find in a magazine or newspaper, or in some cases, content sites, expert sites online. So people are trusting friends and family recommendations, people who express their opinions but they don't know, think of TripAdvisor, places like that, and then editorial content, which is often expert content. Next slide, please. And this is those kinds of things show up on social sites, obviously. This is my final slide before we go to Nick and his presentation. But this was quite interesting. So LSA asked consumers through a third party, Burke, which was the entity that conducted the research. So when you visit one of these sites, what happens afterwards? What do you do, consumer, after you go to a directory site or a review site or a search engine or a social media site? And what we found out was that large numbers of consumers will go to, will connect to a business, not just go to a business. They'll submit an email, make a call, visit a store, visit a business website. So there's different methods of contacting businesses, but this shows that review sites and social networks and search engines have very high referral rates. So people are very directed very often when they're going into these sites and looking for information because they want to make some sort of buying decision or they're trying to complete a task. And what's interesting here is that ratings and reviews and social networking sites had higher referral rates, business contacts, than search engines. Which suggests, this is a little bit of a speculation on my part, that suggests people are closer to a purchase decision in a social context or on a review site than they may be on a search engine where they may just be beginning their research. That's conjecture, but it's an interesting thing that seems to be suggested by these percentages. But the bottom line is that social media is an intrinsic and important part of the consumer purchase process now, where they seek information, exchange ideas and opinions, and it's really something that every business owner needs to take account of or can always do a better job with. And with more tips on how to do that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Hopkins of Haibu. So Nick, take it away.
Great, thanks, Greg. So that was a great overview of how people are using social media today and why it's an important part of their overall marketing portfolio. So I'm going to talk now about once you decide to do social media marketing, how do you make it effective, and give you some tips and hopefully some tools to work with on that front. So I'm going to break this down into 5 topics, talk about the changing landscape a bit, talk about how to build a 3-dimensional strategy or a 360-degree strategy around social media marketing, how content and engagement with consumers comes into play, some approaches to advertising, and some ways you can use some of the tools that Facebook especially has out there for advertising your business on social media, and then wrap up with talking a little bit about how consumer behavior is changing in the online world and how you can maybe adapt your business strategy to that changing consumer behavior. So the landscape here has changed over the last few years. If you looked back a few years ago, Facebook was really all about content marketing. So the strategy that they were pushing and the strategy that small businesses were using, and based on Greg's statistic earlier, are still using often, was around writing posts. So a business would go on and write interesting posts. They would use those posts to try to drive likes for their business. More likes meant there was a bigger audience viewing those posts, and this created this virtual cycle of content marketing, building an audience of followers to your business, and then using that that audience to to gradually increment up a larger and larger audience. But that's a strategy that no longer really works very well on Facebook, and there are a couple reasons for that. First, it's never really been clear how you monetize a like. How much is a like worth to your business? How do you turn it into new business? And is it really effective at attracting new consumers into your business? And second, and maybe more importantly, the news feed itself on Facebook has just become a much more crowded and competitive space. So what used to be mostly friends and family information is now, and being encroached on by news publishers, by magazine publishers, by local and national advertisers, and it's become a really competitive space. And since Facebook really cares about the consumer experience, they've started to really tailor the content that a user sees. And the net of all that is that, on average, only about 3% of the followers of a business are going to see the post of that business. And it's really the most engaged followers who are going to see that content, the one who Facebook has said are really interested in your business, and that makes it somewhat of a one-dimensional strategy. So to broaden that and get into a real what we call a 3-dimensional strategy here, you really need to add to that content strategy. So reaching and engaging those consumers is extremely important. You want to reach out to new people and bring new people in, and not just have this this kind of echo chamber of people who already know about your business. It's really important to couple that with maintaining an active social media presence, being active and engaged with your consumer base, and doing that on a regular and timely fashion. Any one of these, ignoring any one of these pieces, is going to make for an overall less successful strategy. The analogy I use here is that a stool with 2 legs isn't going to stay upright; it's going to fall over, and the same thing is true with your social media marketing strategy. So what are some of the things that can go wrong if you do ignore some of these? So you might market and reach only your local consumers, right? So again, if you have a purely a content strategy, you're really talking to people who have already decided to follow your business. And while that might grow some organically over time, it's not really an effective strategy to grow and bring in new consumers. You could have a great ad campaign that is reaching out to new consumers, but if the people who are seeing your ad come back in and they don't see content, they may fall off, right? Somebody coming into your Facebook page, how many times have you come into a Facebook page and the last post on that page was from in 2014? It doesn't give you a great feeling about how engaged that business owner is and how interested they are in bringing you in as a customer. And likewise, you could have great ad campaign, be bringing lots of good consumers to your business, have great content on there, but as people are responding to or commenting on your posts, you're not responding back to them. And again, you come into a Facebook page, you see a great post there, you comment on it, ask a question about it, you don't get a response to it, and that's going to make you fall off as a potential customer of that business. So you really need to combine all three of these elements into a coherent 360-degree plan. You need to run a great ad campaign, you need to post regularly on your page, and you need to be responsive to customer questions and comments. And so we're going to talk a little bit more in the rest of this presentation about how to do those things effectively. So starting with the content and engagement front, really when we think about content for a Facebook page, and this again reflects back on some of the statistics that Greg talked about before, there are really three different types of content you can think about posting. You can think about finding interesting content out there in the online sphere and reposting it. Things that consumers have shown interest in before and that you think might be relevant to your prospective customers. Either they're directly relevant to your business or they're relevant to that genre, and you think that they might be interesting and engaging for consumers coming into your site. You can combine that with your own posts about your business, and that's an important element to it as well, to really personalize the content that's on your Facebook page by posting about your business, about promotions, about events, even about your employees. To, again, keep a personalized kind of stream of content there. And then the third piece, which again, going back to Greg's stats on what consumers trust the most, is to start soliciting reviews and other kinds of content from your customers. Encourage your customers to come onto your Facebook page and post there. Encourage them to review your business. And that's really going to drive a lot of trustworthiness when other consumers are coming in and seeing that content. So again, it's really important to combine all three of these elements if you want to have a really robust presence on Facebook. Once you have that content there, as I mentioned before, it's important to keep people, to keep engaged with that. So as people are coming in, reviewing your business, posting, commenting on the posts that you've put up there, it's really important for you to respond in a timely fashion. People expect that today on social media. They expect that if they ask a question, that question is going to be answered in a timely fashion. It's also important to remember that while Facebook is the big kahuna out there, it's not the only social media platform, and depending on what your base of customers looks like, their age, their demographics, where they're living and so forth, they may skew more heavily towards something like WhatsApp or towards Instagram as opposed to Facebook. So it's important to be aware of what your consumer base is using and to be responsive across all those different social media platforms. And last but not least, it's really important not to ignore the negatives. It's often difficult to get into a conversation with somebody who has something negative to say about your business. But as new consumers are coming in, drawn by your ad campaign, it's really important that they see that you're engaging with those, that you're responsive to customers who have problems. Because the last thing somebody wants to do is do business with somebody who, if they have a problem, is not going to handle it in a good fashion. So the other aspect of this is building a really robust advertising plan, and this is something that we're going to touch on a little bit here. It's a very complicated subject. I'm going to try to give you some tips and tools here, but again, refer back to the white paper that Becky mentioned at the beginning of the presentation here if you want to learn a little bit more. So Facebook has developed some ad types that are specific to local businesses and small businesses that are really meant to achieve those types of businesses' objectives. There are three key ones here. Local awareness ads, which are really about trying to keep your business top of mind with the local consumer. click ads, which are meant to drive quality traffic to your online presence. So if you have a website and you really want to use your Facebook ad to drive people back to that website, and that's where you're keeping your richest content, you can use a click ads campaign. And leads ads, which are meant to capture explicit marketing information, email addresses, and other kinds of information you can use to reach out to those customers. And what you'll see here, as I brought up examples of each of those, is that from a cosmetic and format point of view, they're really not that much different. There are some differences around the calls to action that are on the pages, but structurally they're really the same. What's really different about them is the way that under the hood, Facebook is optimizing the delivery of those ads. So for the click ads, for example, they're really trying to find the users out there in their user base who are going to respond to that ad and click on it. For the for the local awareness ads, they're trying to make sure they're reaching local consumers and getting your ad in front of those local consumers frequently enough to build up the awareness of your brand and your business. And for the leads ads, they're really optimizing that campaign around people who are going to come in and be willing to give you their email address or their phone number in exchange for some kind of quid pro quo, some kind of offer or other kind of promotion. So once you've got your objectives settled on, there's a lot of other things that go into building a good ad. So you need to start thinking about what's the best format for your ad. Is it a video ad or an image ad or a carousel ad that has multiple images that scroll across? What's the best way to present your business in an ad format? What images will get the best response? It's not always the ones you'd naturally think of, but what headlines and text do you want for your ads? As you can see with this example, there's a headline here at the top of the ad, but also text that goes along with each of the other images. And then what's the most appropriate call to action? Within a Facebook ad, all of those elements can be adjusted. And so since it's hard to tell necessarily what's going to work the best, it's really important to be in a position to test and measure and try out different things, try images that might not be the ones that your gut feel are going to do the best, try some other things and see how they perform against each other. The other aspect of the ad campaign, of course, is targeting, and this is an area that a lot of people stumble on. Facebook talks about the amount that they know about consumers, and they have a vast array of information about consumers, and they support targeting around a lot of those aspects, around demographics and behavior and interests of their users. But at the same time, they also have very, very powerful ad targeting and optimization algorithms under the hood of their platform. And so one of the things that a lot of local businesses do is try to over-target. That is, they try to say, well, my ideal customer is this age and this gender and this demographic, this income level, and they try to build a campaign to target around that. What they end up doing is over-targeting. So really the best practice is to establish what you think are your basic criteria. If you're going after a particular gender, a particular age range, that's fine, but don't go too far in trying to over-target your campaign, because what ends up happening is you constrain the delivery of that campaign. It may not spend, you may not be able to deliver it, or you may be missing out on an audience that actually would respond really well to your ad even though you weren't thinking about it at that time. And you limit the ability to take advantage of the kind of viral nature of Facebook, where people who might not be in your immediate target audience will actually share that ad with people who are. And so you really constrain the kind of tree of people who can see your ad and therefore the overall effectiveness of your ad if you do over-target. So really you should let Facebook algorithms do what they do best, which is figure out the right audience who's going to be most responsive to your ad and let it run and optimize for you. So just to kind of recap on that, so you want to settle on your key objective first, decide whether it's building your brand or building traffic, bringing traffic to your website or building out your marketing list or your lead list that's most important to you. Once you settle on that, choose the ad formats that's going to work the best for your business. Test and adjust on that because, as I said, it's not always the tagline or the text or the image that you think is going to work the best that's going to perform the best. So get out there and try different things. And then try to resist the urge to over-target. Don't let the availability of all those features within Facebook's advertising let you think that you have to use all those things. Back off a little bit and let their algorithms do, and their machine learning do the work for you. Okay, so I said I'd end up with a couple things on how the digital consumer's behavior is changing and some things you can do to try to adapt to that. One of those is really around communication. So while a lot of businesses have thrived over the years on driving phone calls and using their ad campaign to drive phone calls, there's an increasing base of consumers, and especially younger ones, millennials we all hear a lot about, who don't want to pick up the phone to call. They grew up with texting. They want to communicate while they're at work. They're working. Their work day has stretched out to 24/7. They want to communicate while they're at work in the office, and they like the asynchronous nature of communication. They want to be able to text, get a response back, answer when they want to, when it's convenient for them, rather than having to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. So one of the things you should consider is using Facebook Messenger as an additional way of communicating with your consumers. Facebook makes it really easy. You can enable Messenger on your Facebook page. You can put a Messenger button on your website. And what you're doing is giving consumers another way to communicate with you. So if they're in a situation where they don't want to pick up the phone and call, you don't lose that lead. You can still engage with that consumer. The only thing you have to remember is once you commit to using Facebook Messenger, you've got to live up to it. So one of the expectations that those consumers have is that if they ask a question over Messenger, they're going to get a response quickly. And you'll see that reflected in the fact that if you go to a Facebook page that has Messenger, you can actually see Facebook will actually tell you how responsive that advertiser is, or the owner of that page is. And if people see that they respond on average in 3 days, they're simply going to go away and find another person to do business with. And the other area is that as people have used, people are more and more using their mobile devices, the usage patterns have shifted to, and a lot of the social and mobile usage is actually peaking in the evening when you may not be around to answer your phone. So one of the things you can do here is adding an online, adding online conversion events onto your website and onto your Facebook page. So a Book Now event, Book Now capability is a great thing. If you're a business that takes reservations, adding a Book Now and an online booking capability to your Facebook page and your website is really easy, and it's a great way to capture that audience that's clicking on your ad at 7 p.m. and wants to be able to schedule something with you right now, doesn't want to wait till the next day. And again, if they don't find that on your site, they're going to go off and find that through somebody else, and you're potentially losing business. And Facebook has some great tools for adding these kind of features to your Facebook page. There are lots of third-party tools out there as well that are well integrated into Facebook to support the same sort of thing. So those are two great strategies for trying to adapt to the upcoming millennials and people who are living in the digital world all the time. So I covered a lot of topics there. I went through it quickly. We really only scratched the surface. Facebook is a complex animal, and it's a constantly changing animal, and consumer behavior is changing at the same time. But the good news is there's a whole industry of people out there, Haibu among them, who are there to help you succeed. There's a lot of online assets you can go to. Facebook themselves, through their blueprints, online training, has some great training courses you can take at your own pace, and there are lots of third-party sources out there as well, blogs and other experts out there ready to help you. So the key thing that comes up when you're sitting here looking at all this is, do I do it myself, or do I have somebody do it for me? And there are lots of people who choose to manage their own Facebook marketing. Some of them start out, conclude that it's too complex, and back off it and decide somebody else to help, but others, dive right in, love the learning and the experience, and decide to do it themselves. But if you do decide to do it yourself, just remember you need to plan. You need to decide what it is you're trying to accomplish out of your social media marketing. You need to do your research and read up before you get started. And you need to spend some, be prepared to spend some time doing it. As I mentioned before with the ad campaigns, you need to get in there and try things out. You need to learn from your mistakes and correct those mistakes. And it will take some time and some effort on your part. So don't be too surprised if you don't have the time. If you find out that learning about all the intricacies of Facebook advertising isn't for you, and you decide to get somebody else to manage your campaign. There are lots of people out there who are itching to help you be successful. And to wrap up, whatever you decide, good luck out there, and don't hesitate to reach out to Haibu or any of Facebook's other marketing partners for whatever help you need. We're here to help you and hopefully help you be successful. With that,
Great. Thank you very.
Thank you, Nick.
Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Thanks, both of you. All right, that was an awesome.
I think if we have time, we can just. There are a couple of questions that I had, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Nick? Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I just thought it'd be interesting to hear from you based on your experience. What are the most common one or two mistakes that you see people making with Facebook marketing or social media marketing in general? I mean, you mentioned some things, but just to refocus our audience, what are the kinds of things that people are doing wrong or doing incorrectly most commonly?
Yeah, I'd say to go back to what I mentioned both of these things before, I think, but really, that kind of one-dimensional program that's all about organic content, trying to be a content marketer on Facebook without adding in the advertising component to it, which again, is kind of an echo chamber approach. And then secondly, of those people who are going into advertising, I'd say, trying to go too far, trying to overdo it, trying to over-target the campaign. Facebook talks a lot about all these great and wonderful things they know about consumers, and advertisers often think, well, then I need to use all those things. You don't need to use every utensil that's sitting in front of you if a fork and a knife will do fine for eating your meal, right? And so people go overboard with trying to do too much and overcomplicate things. I'd say those are the two biggest.
Great. Okay, and you did mention those. I was just wanting to kind of bring that back. How much time can people expect if they're engaged in a kind of a do it yourself approach to this? What's the weekly commitment that people can expect to make in terms of time? Is it 10 hours, 20 hours, 3 hours? What do you see across your customer base? Or not your customer base because you do it for people, but what do you understand about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's one of those things that you can spend as much time as you're willing to. I mean, it can be all-consuming, right? You could spend all of your days and nights poring over data in Facebook's interface and figuring out what's working and not working in your ads. And they have so many different ad formats and ad styles. You could never eat or sleep and still not run out of things to try. But I would say typically when you're looking at doing a few posts a week, responding to consumers, running an ad campaign, you're talking about probably a good 10 to 12 hours a week to do a decent job of managing your presence.
And just as a kind of a final question, sort of a similar idea around budget. So if somebody is moving from a purely organic or free strategy into starting to experiment with ads and using advertising, what's a range that they can expect for a reasonable campaign? And I know that that's very hard to answer, and costs are different depending upon the industry and the geography and the competition and so on and so forth. But just give us a guideline. Should I be paying $5 a week, $20 a week, or on a monthly basis? What can people expect from a ad spending standpoint?
Yeah, again, good question. Again, hard to characterize. There are certainly advertisers out there who are spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a month on their Facebook campaigns. Obviously, a small business isn't going to do that. You can get started as low as $1 a day, so $30 a month will get you enough spend so you can put some advertising into newsfeed ads, which is really the primary way to reach the core audience across both mobile and desktop. But you're going to be limited at that spend level into what kinds of features you can use and the amount of testing you can do. The less data you have, the harder it is to test and adapt and figure out what's working and what's not working. So we would typically see people getting up into the $100 and up a month, which still isn't a huge investment, to get to the point where they're able to exercise more of the features and capabilities of Facebook advertising and really start to learn from it and really start to be successful with it.
And my final question before I turn it back over to Becky is really, I know that you talked a little bit about this, but just sort of putting on a a little bit of a different hat for a second. If you're sitting across from a small business owner and they're looking to get some advice about what to look for for a marketing consultant or a firm to help them with social media marketing, and I know you guys do this, and we'll give out your contact information. But what would you say to them? What are the one or two things that are really important to understand or look for from a partner who's going to do social media marketing on your behalf?
Yeah, I would say someone who has experience dealing with small businesses, and the needs of a small local business are very different from those of a large brand advertiser. And so we've seen a lot of agencies who have worked with large brands before, trying to come in and do that same work for small businesses, and they try to do the same best practices that they've done for Procter & Gamble or for the regional HVAC company anyway, and try to bring those down to the small business. And again, the strategies that make sense for a large brand don't necessarily make sense for a small business. So I'd say looking for somebody who's got a lot of experience doing running campaigns for local businesses, and by campaigns I mean not just the advertising component of the campaigns, but also the content portion of it that needs to go along with that ad campaign. And then I'd say while we've been talking exclusively about social media marketing here, really if you're doing a robust online digital marketing campaign, you should be doing it on social media and on other places. I mean, you mentioned websites before as an important element of a digital marketing campaign, and so you don't want to have your website have a completely different look and feel and style to your Facebook page. So ideally looking for someone who can wrap their arms around all the things you're trying to do online with your digital marketing and make them all work well together, I'd say is critical as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nick. Excellent presentation. So back to you, Becky.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so excellent presentation from the both of you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to the Small Business Guide to Facebook Marketing one more time. Most of the things that we covered today are going to be outlined in this report, which you can download for free at marketingbitz.com/reports-hibu. So just take a look there when you get a chance. Next slide, please, Nick. And I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope you learned something from this webinar. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to Nick, please feel free to email us at, I know you can't really see the email, but the email is info@marketingbitz.com, and we'll direct you to Nick, or we'll answer your question directly. So with that, I'm going to close out the webinar, but thanks for listening and have a great day.